The cruel monster made no answer, but just jumped up and reached out towards my men, grabbed two like a pair of puppies, and dashed them on the ground. Their brains ran out and soaked into the earth. Then he cut them up, limb by limb, and made them ready for supper. He devoured them like a mountain lion, bowels and flesh and marrow bones, and left nothing. We groaned aloud, lifting our hands to Zeus when we saw this brutal business, but there was nothing to be done. When Goggle-Eye had filled his great belly with his meal of human flesh, washed down with a draught of milk neat, he lay and stretched himself among the sheep. But I did not lose heart. I considered whether to go near and draw my sharp sword and drive it into his breast. I could feel about till I found the place where the midriff encloses the liver, but second thoughts kept me back. We should have perished ourselves in that place, dead and done for. We could never have moved the great stone which he had planted in the doorway, so we lay groaning and waited till dawn. Dawn came. He lifted the fire, milked his flocks all in order, but the young under each. Then he grabbed 2 more men and prepared his breakfast. That done, he drove out the fat flocks, moving away the great stone with ease, but he put it back again, just as you fit cover to quiver. With many a whistle, Goggle-Eye turned his flat flocks to the hills. But I was left brooding and full of dark plans, longing to have my revenge if Athena would grant my prayer. Among all my schemes and machinations, the best plan I could think of was this. A long spar was lying beside the pen, a sapling of green olive wood. Goggle-Eye had cut it down to dry it and use as a staff. It looked to us about as large as the mast of a 20-oar ship, some broad hoy that sails the deep sea. It was about that length and thickness. I cut off a fathom of this and handed it over to my men to dress down. They made it smooth, then I sharpened the end and charred it in the hot fire and hid it carefully under the dung which lay in a great mass all over the floor. Then I told the others to cast lots, who should help me with the pole and rub it into his eye while he was sound asleep. The lot fell on those 4 whom I would have chosen myself, which made 5 counting me. In the evening back he came with his flocks. This time he drove them all into the cave and left none outside in the yard. Whether he suspected something or God made him do it, I do not know. Then he lifted the great stone and set it in place, sat down and milked his ewes and nannies, bleating loudly, all in order, put her young under each, and then, when this was done, grabbed 2 more men and made his meal. At this moment I came near the Goggle-Eye, holding in my hand an ivy-wood cup full of the red wine, and I said, Cyclops, here, have a drink after that jolly meal of man's mutton. I should like to show you what drink we had on board our ship. I brought it as a drink offering for you, in the hope that you might have pity and help me on my way home. But you are mad beyond all bearing. Hard heart, how can you expect any other men to pay you a visit? For you have done what is not right. He took it and swallowed it down. The good stuff delighted him terribly, and he asked for another drink. Oh, please give me more, and tell me your name this very minute. I will give you a stranger's gift which will make you happy. Mother Earth does give us wine in huge bunches, even in this part of the world, and the rain from heaven makes them grow. But this is a rivulet of nectar and ambrosia. Then I gave him a second draught. 3 drinks I gave him, 3 times the fool drank. At last, when the wine had got into his head, I said to him in the gentlest of tones, Cyclops, do you ask me my name? Well, I will tell you, and you shall give me the stranger's due as you promised. No man is my name. No man is what mother and father call me and all my friends. When the cruel monster said, No man shall be last eaten of his company, and all the others shall be eaten before him, what shall be your stranger's gift? As he said this, down he slipped and rolled on his back. His thick neck drooped sideways, and all-conquering sleep laid hold on him. Wine dribbled out of his gullet with lumps of human flesh as he belched in his drunken slumbers. Then I drove the deep pole under the ashes to grow hot, and spoke to hearten my men that no one might fail me through fear. As soon as the wood was on the point of catching fire and glowed white-hot, green as it was, I drew it quickly out of the fire while my men stood round me. God breathed great courage into us then. The men took hold of the stake and thrust the sharp point into his eye, and I leaned hard on it from above and turned it round and round. As a man bores a ship's timber with an auger, while others at the lower part keep turning it with a strap which they hold at each end, and round it runs. As we held the fire-sharpened pole and turned it, the blood bubbled about its hot point. The fumes singed eyelids and eyelashes all about as the eyeball burnt and the roots crackled in the fire. As a smith plunges an axe or an adze in cold water, for that makes the strength of steel, and it hisses loud when he tempers it, so his eye sizzled about the pole of olive wood. He gave a horrible bellow till the rocks rang again, and we shrank away in fear. Then he dragged out the post from his eye, dabbled and dripping with blood, and threw it from him, wringing his hands in wild agony, and roared aloud to the Cyclopeans who live in caves round about among the windy hills. They heard his cries and came thronging from all directions and stood about the cave, asking what his trouble was. "What on earth is the matter with you, Polyphemus?" they called out. "Why do you shout like this through the night and wake us all up? Is any man driving away your flocks against your will? Is anyone trying to kill you by craft or main force?" Out of the cave came the voice of mighty Polyphemus. "O my friends, no man is killing me by craft and not by main force." They answered him in plain words. "Well, if no man is using force and you are alone, there is no help for a bit of sickness when heaven sends it. So you had better say your prayers to Lord Poseidon your father." With these words away they went, and my heart laughed within me to think how a mere nobody had taken them all in my machinations. But the Cyclops, groaning and writhing in agony, fumbled about with his hands until he found the stone and pushed it away from the entrance. There he sat with his hands outspread to catch anyone who tried to go out with the animals. A great fool he must have thought me, but I had been casting about what to do for the best, if I could possibly find some escape from death for my comrades and myself. All kinds of schemes and machinations I wove in my wits, for it was life or death, and perdition was close by. The plan that seemed to me best was this. The rams were all grown large and fine, with coats of thick, dark wool. Indeed, in dead silence I tied them together with twisted withes, which the monster used for his bed. I tied them in threes, with a man under the middle one, while the two others protected him on each side. So 3 carried each of our fellows, but for myself there was one great ram, the finest of the whole flock. I threw my arms over his back and curled myself under his shaggy belly, and there I laid, turned upwards, with only my hands to hold fast by the wonderful fleece in patience. So we all waited anxiously for the dawn. At last the dawn came. The rams and billies surged out to pasture, but the nannies and ewes unmilked went bleating around the pens, for their udders were full to burst. Their masters, still tormented with pain, fell over the backs of all the animals as they passed out, but the poor fool did not notice how the men were tied under their bellies. Last of all, the great ram stalked to the door, cumbered with the weight of his wool and of me and my teeming mind. Polyphemus said, as he pawed him over, "Hello, why are you last today, you crazy creature? It is not your way to let them leave you behind. No, no, you go first by a long way to crop the fresh grass, stepping high and large, first to drink at the river, first all eagerness to come home in the morning, but now last. Are you sorry, perhaps, for your master's eye, which a damned villain has blinded with his cursed companions after he had fuddled me with wine? No man who hasn't yet escaped the death in store for him, I tell him that. If you only had sense like me, if you could only speak and tell me where the man is skulking from my vengeance, wouldn't I beat his head on the ground? Wouldn't his brains go splashing all over the place? And then I should have some little consolation for the trouble which this nobody of a no-man has brought upon me." So he let the ram go from him out of the cave. A little way from the cave and its enclosure I shook myself loose, first from under my ram. Then I freed my companions, and with all speed we drove the fat animals trotting along, often looking round until we reached our ship. Glad indeed our friends were to see us, all of us that were left alive. They lamented the others, and made such a noise that I had to stop it. Frowning at them and shaking my head, I told them to look sharp and throw on board a number of the fleecy beasts and get away. Soon they were in their places, paddling along, but when we were about as far from the shore as a man can shout, I called out in mockery, "I say, Cyclops, he didn't turn out to be such a milksop after all, did he, when you murdered his friends and gobbled them up in your cave? Your sins were sure to find you out, you cruel brute. You had no scruple to devour your guests in your own house, therefore vengeance has fallen upon you from Zeus and the gods in heaven." This made him more furious than ever. He broke off the peak of a tall rock and threw it. The rock fell in front of the ship, The sea splashed and surged up as it fell. It raised a wave which carried us back to the land, and the rolling swell drove the ship right upon the shore. I picked up a long quant and pushed her off, and nodded to the men as a hint to row hard and save their lives. They may be sure they put their backs into it. When you were twice as far as before, I wanted to shout again to Goggle Eye, although my comrades all round tried to coax me not to do it. Foolhardy man, why would you want to provoke the madman? Just now he threw something to seaward of us and drove back the ship to land, and we thought all was up with us. And if he had heard one of us speaking or making a sound, he would have thrown a jagged rock and smashed our timbers and our bones to smithereens. He throws far enough. But I was determined not to listen, and shouted again in my fury, I say, Cyclops, if ever anyone asks you who put out your ugly eye, tell him your blinder was Odysseus, the conqueror of Troy, the son of Laertes, whose address is in Ithaca. When he heard this, he gave a loud cry and said, Upon my word, this is the old prophecy come true. There was a soothsayer here once, a fine tall fellow, Telemus Eurymedes, a famous soothsayer, who lived to old age, prophesying against our people. He told me what was to happen, that I should lose my sight at the hands of Odysseus, but I always expected that some tall, handsome fellow would come this way, clothed in mighty power. Now a nobody, a weakling, a whipper-snapper, has blinded my eye after fuddling me with wine. Come to me, dear Odysseus, and let me give you the stranger's gift. Let me beseech the worshipful Earthshaker to grant you a happy voyage, for I have the honor to be his son, and he declares he is my father. He will cure me, if he chooses, all by himself, without the help of blessed gods or mortal man. I answered at once, I wish I could kill you and send you to hell as surely as no one will ever unblind your eye, not even the Earthshaker. At this he held out his hand to heaven and prayed to Lord Poseidon. Hear me, Poseidon Earthshaker, sea blue hair. If I am truly thy son, and thou art indeed my father, grant that Odysseus, the conqueror of Troy, the son of Laertes, whose address is in Ithaca, may never reach his home. But if it is his due portion to see his friends and come again to his tall house in his native land, may he come there late and in misery, in another man's ship, may he lose all his companions, and may he find tribulation at home. This was his prayer, and Sea Blue Hair heard it. Then once again he lifted a stone greater than the other, and circled it round his head, gathering all his vast strength for the blow, and flung it. Down it fell behind our ship just a little, just missed the end of the steering oar. The sea splashed and surged up as it fell, and the wave carried her on and drove her to the shore on the island. When we came safe to the island where the other ships were waiting for us, we found our companions in great anxiety, hoping against hope. We drew up our ship on the sand and put the sheep of old Goggle Eye ashore, and divided them so as to give every one a fair share. But by general consent the great ram was given to me. I sacrificed him on the beach to Zeus Crinodes. Clouds and darkness are round about him, and he rules over all. I made my burnt offering, but Zeus regarded it not, for as it turned out, he intended that all my tight ships and all my trusty companions should be destroyed. We spent the rest of the day until sunset in feasting, eating full and drinking deep, and when the sun set and darkness came on, we lay to rest on the seashore. Then at dawn I directed the men in all haste to embark and throw off the moorings. They were soon aboard and rowing away in good fettle over the sea. So we fared onwards, thankful to be alive, but sorrowing for our comrades whom we had lost.